The rain hadn't stopped since morning. It drummed relentlessly against the glass windows of the bus, smearing the city into a blur of grays and silvers. Emily Hayes tightened her grip on the plastic grocery bag she carried in one hand and adjusted her daughter Lily's jacket with the other. At only 3 years old, Lily's world should have been filled with crayons and storybooks, not long commutes and the weight of her mother's silent worry. But life rarely unfolded the way dreams promised. By the time Emily stepped off the bus, her shoes were soaked through. The puddles on the sidewalk swallowed her reflection as she hurried toward the towering glass building ahead. Carter Enterprises. It was a name that carried weight, whispered in awe by those who dreamed of corporate success. For Emily, it was more than just a company. It was hope. It was survival. She had been unemployed for nearly 8 months, juggling part-time cleaning jobs and late-night shifts at a diner just to keep food on the table. Every paycheck barely covered rent, leaving her with the gnawing fear of eviction. Today's interview was her last chance at stability. If she failed here, she wasn't sure where else to turn. But fate had played a cruel trick on her that morning. The babysitter had cancelled with a rush text, and Emily had no one else. She had stared at Lily, standing there in her faded pink sneakers, and realized she had no choice. She either missed the interview entirely or she brought her daughter with her. And so she found herself standing in the grand marble lobby of Carter Enterprises, her copyright copyright clutched in one trembling hand. Lily perched on her hip. The building itself felt like a different world, high ceilings adorned with glittering chandeliers, sleek furniture that gleamed under warm lights, and men and women in sharp suits moving with an air of purpose. Everything screamed wealth and power. The receptionist spotted her immediately, a young woman with perfectly styled hair and an expression that hinted at impatience. Her eyes narrowed as they landed on the child. "You can't bring a child into an interview," she said flatly. Emily's heart lurched. She took a breath, trying to steady her voice. "Yeah, broken bar, I had no choice," she whispered. "My babysitter cancelled, and I couldn't miss this opportunity. Please see broken bar, this job means everything to me." A few heads turned. Several other candidates waiting on the leather couches lifted their eyes from their phones or tablets. One man smirked as though amused by her desperation. Another woman rolled her eyes, muttering something under her breath. Emily felt the sting of their silent judgment. Her cheeks flushed red, but she straightened her shoulders, refusing to crumble. Lily, sensing her mother's unease, wrapped her tiny arms tighter around Emily's neck. "Mommy, don't cry," the little girl whispered softly, her voice innocent and pure. The words pierced Emily's chest. She hadn't realized her eyes had welled up with tears. She forced a smile for Lily's sake, brushing a damp strand of hair away from her daughter's face. "I'm okay, sweetheart." Just then, a pair of sharp heels clicked against the marble floor. The HR manager emerged, a tall woman in a tailored navy suit, her face composed into an expression of thinly veiled irritation. She carried a folder in one hand, glancing briefly at Emily before her gaze fell on the child. The disapproval was immediate. "Miss Hayes?" she asked, her tone clipped. "Yes," Emily said, her voice quivering slightly. "I'm afraid we cannot proceed today. This is a professional environment, and bringing your child here." Broken bar. The woman paused, letting the silence linger before delivering the final blow. "A broken bar shows poor judgment." The words hit harder than Emily expected. She felt as if she'd been struck, the humiliation burning deep inside her chest. She opened her mouth to explain, to plead, but her voice stuck in her throat. The room seemed to shrink, the whispers of the waiting candidates buzzing louder in her ears. Poor judgment. The phrase echoed like a curse. Did they not see the courage it took just to stand here? Did they not know the nights she spent lying awake, calculating bills and rationing food, praying for a miracle? Her knees trembled. She wanted to collapse, to run out of the building and never look back. But Lily's small hand brushed against her cheek, anchoring her to reality. Emily swallowed hard, forcing herself to stand tall even as her heart shattered. Before she could gather the words to defend herself, the atmosphere in the lobby shifted. It was subtle at first, a hush that fell over the chatter, a ripple of silence that spread through the room. Then came the sound of heavy footsteps, measured and steady, echoing across the marble floor. Everyone turned. A tall figure entered the lobby, commanding attention without a word. His presence was magnetic, the kind that drew every eye and held it. Alexander Carter, the elusive, young millionaire CEO himself. His name carried weight not only in business circles but also in headlines. Known for building his empire from the ground up after inheriting very little, he was admired, envied, and feared in equal measure. He cut an imposing figure in his tailored black suit, the crisp lines accentuating his broad shoulders. His dark hair was neatly styled, and his sharp features betrayed no emotion. Yet there was something in his eyes so calm, penetrating, and unsettlingly observant that silenced even the most arrogant of employees. The HR manager stiffened, her confidence faltering as soon as she saw him. The receptionist straightened in her seat. The waiting candidate sat up straighter, some even holding their breath. Alexander Carter's gaze swept across the room before settling on Emily and the small child in her arms. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Emily's pulse quickened. She felt exposed, her every flaw laid bare under the weight of his stare. "Is there a problem here?" His voice was calm, measured, but it carried an authority that demanded an answer. The HR manager hesitated, fumbling for words. Emily's throat tightened, her heart pounding in her chest. She never expected this. She had come here today hoping only for a chance, and now she stood at the center of attention. Her desperation and vulnerability illuminated under the gaze of the most powerful man in the building. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to run. But Lily, still nestled against her, whispered, "Mommy, who's that?" Emily swallowed hard, knowing everything in her life could change in the next few seconds. For a moment, the lobby of Carter Enterprises felt like a courtroom, with Emily standing accused and Alexander Carter presiding as judge. The weight of his eyes was unbearable. Emily shifted uneasily, her arms tightening protectively around Lily as if she could shield her daughter from judgment. The HR manager cleared her throat nervously. "Mr. Carter, this candidate Miss Hayes arrived for her interview while broken bar with a child. Naturally, we cannot allow." Alexander lifted a hand, silencing her. His gaze never left Emily. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in the way his brow furrowed ever so slightly that made the air heavy with anticipation. Emily's heart raced. She wanted to speak, to explain herself, but her voice refused to come. She thought of every interview she had been turned away from, every door closed in her face. She braced herself for rejection once again. But before anyone else could speak, a soft little voice broke the silence. "Hi," Lily said, her big brown eyes peeking curiously at the tall man. "I'm Lily. Are you a boss?" The tension cracked like glass under the child's innocence. A few candidates stifled chuckles, while others looked away in surprise. Alexander's lips twitched almost imperceptibly as if fighting the ghost of a smile. He crouched slightly, lowering himself to Lily's level, his piercing gaze softening. "Yes," he said simply, his voice steady. "I suppose I am." Lily tilted her head, studying him with the boldness only a child possessed. "You look like the people on Mommy's computer when she's looking for jobs. But you don't look mean." A ripple of laughter passed through the lobby, but this time it wasn't cruel, it was astonished. No one dared laugh at Alexander Carter. Yet here was this tiny girl, speaking to him as though he were just another stranger on the street. Emily's face flushed crimson. "Lily, sweetheart," as she began, mortified. But Alexander raised a hand gently. "It's quite all right." Then he straightened, turning his attention back to Emily. "Miss Hayes, is it? Why don't you tell me why you're here?" The HR manager's jaw nearly dropped. "Sir, we have a process." "Then consider it interrupted," he said sharply, his voice carrying a finality that silenced her. Emily's knees felt weak. She clutched her copyright copyright tighter, her voice trembling. "Yeah, I came for the administrative assistant position, Mr. Carter." "Yeah, broken bar. I know I shouldn't have brought my daughter, but I had no other choice. The babysitter cancelled, and a broken bar." Her voice broke. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to waste this opportunity. Please don't think I don't take this seriously." "Yeah." Her words tumbled out in a rush, thick with desperation. She hated how small she sounded, how vulnerable. But she couldn't stop. She had carried so much pride for so long, swallowing rejection after rejection, and now everything spilled out in front of the one man she least wanted to appear weak before. Alexander studied her silently, his sharp eyes analyzing not just her words, but her posture, her exhaustion, the way she held her daughter like a shield and an anchor all at once. He noticed the worn shoes, the fraying strap of her handbag, the careful but outdated suit she wore, clean, pressed, but old. He saw the determination in her, even as her voice cracked. Most people who stood before him wanted power, money, status. This woman wanted survival. That alone made her different. "Tell me something," he said finally. "Why this job? Why Carter Enterprises?" Emily swallowed hard, forcing herself to meet his gaze. "Because I need stability. I've worked in offices before, reception, bookkeeping, scheduling. I know I can do the work. But more than that," a broken bar, her voice softened, "I need to give my daughter a chance at a better life. I'm not asking for favors, just a chance to prove myself." The honesty in her words hit like a quiet thunderclap. Silence stretched in the lobby. The receptionist fidgeted, the HR manager bit her lip, and the waiting candidates pretended not to listen while hanging on to every word. Alexander's jaw tightened. He turned his gaze briefly to Lily, who now rested her head against her mother's shoulder, eyes drooping with drowsiness. Despite the awkwardness of the situation, the child was calm, trusting her mother completely. Something about the sight tugged at something long buried in him, a shadow of memories he rarely allowed himself to recall. He looked back at Emily. "Follow me," gasps echoed across the lobby. The HR manager blinked in disbelief. "Sir, you a broken bar, you can't just Do you work for me, Miss Clark?" Alexander's voice was steel. The woman stammered, "Yes, Bota." "Then you know my decisions aren't to be questioned." He didn't wait for a reply. With a sharp turn, he began walking toward the private elevators. Emily froze, stunned. "The what?" He glanced over his shoulder. "You said you wanted a chance. I'm giving you one. Unless you'd rather leave." Her breath caught. She tightened her grip on Lily, who perked up again at the sudden movement. Emily's legs moved before her mind could catch up, carrying her after him. She could feel the stares of the entire lobby burning into her back. Whispers followed, but she ignored them. All she saw was the broad back of the man who might hold the key to changing her life. Inside the elevator, the silence was deafening. Emily's pulse thundered in her ears. Lily, ever fearless, pointed at the shining buttons. "Mommy, it's like a rocket ship." Alexander's lips curved into the faintest smirk. He pressed the button for the top floor, his movements precise. Then he turned to Emily. "You're either very desperate, or very brave, Miss Hayes." Emily's throat tightened. "Maybe both." He studied her for another long moment, then finally said, "We'll see which one serves you better." The elevator doors slid shut, carrying them upward and not just toward his office, but toward a turning point Emily never could have imagined when she stepped into the building that rainy morning. For the first time in months, her heart carried something fragile, something terrifying. Hope.